like the previous speaker, Mickey, I went straight from my undergraduate degree into a role in the Students' Union. I hear a wee bit of feedback. I think I'm okay now. Yeah. I went straight into a role within the Students' Union as the Vice President for Korean, and a bit like Mickey, I had the opportunity to work with students on the Korean campus, represent their voices in a number of committees, and work to ensure that their experience on campus was the best it possibly could be. And also a bit like Mickey, caught a bit of a bug for that and found myself quite enjoying that realm. So I decided to go for the next step and ran for president of the Students' Union, working across the four campuses of Ulster, and was very fortunate to be elected to that role for 2 years. So that brought me up to about this time 2 years ago, July 2019, or June 2019, I finished up in Ulster, and having undertaken my undergraduate degree in journalism, I had kind of always envisaged that I would do a year in the Students' Union and then go straight on and do the masters in Korean and journalism, and go into the journalism field, because that had kind of been the way I always envisaged for myself. But things don't always work out as you originally plan, and I found myself really quite enjoying the role that I had within the Students' Union, representing student voices and progressing issues on behalf of students, pushing for students to be included as partners in all decision making within the university, and having had the opportunity to expose myself to networks with Students' Union officers across the island, I decided to run for the National Union, the Union of Students in Ireland, fortunate to be elected to that role. So I was elected to the Vice President for Academic Affairs, which is a role that focuses and leads on educational policy within higher education in Ireland. And that's a role that I've held for the last 2 years. So for those of you who don't know, the Union of Students in Ireland is the national representative body. It represents 374,000 students across the island of Ireland. It's primarily based within the Republic of Ireland, but it works very closely with the Northern Irish representative body, NUS-USF. And I've had the opportunity to work on both national issues and a range of other regional issues for the last 2 years, and in the last year as Deputy President of USA. So that's kind of a bit of my journey and where I've came to. I'm actually finishing up, you'll see 2019 to 21 in that slide. I'm finishing up in that role in a few weeks' time, and I'm moving to a role with the Quality Assurance Agency, which is a higher education organisation that focuses on the quality of learning, communications and PR role in that. So I suppose bit of a boomerang. I'm finally putting the journalism degree to use, and I'm taking some of the communications experience I would have had to that and applying it to the interest that I have generated in terms of higher education. So I'd be really interested, having kind of shared a bit of my journey, to hear a bit about yours. So if you don't mind, and if you're not comfortable, feel free to just ask this question to yourself, but I'd love to hear from you. When you first started in Ulster, what would you hope your post career to be? What did you envisage that upon graduating that you would possibly go into? And then the follow-up question is it still the same now? I've already told you that I very much thought that I was going to go straight into journalism as soon as I graduated, and that wasn't the pathway that I took. And it's not that that was the wrong pathway for me. It's just that my ambition slightly changed as I was exposed to new opportunities throughout my time in Ulster. So feel free to post into the chat, and I'm going to move on to thoughts I have to share with yourselves. Don't limit your opportunities, and this really comes back to the question that I've just asked. You might see your degree as defining a very direct pathway for you. So some of you will be in very vocational degrees. You could be in a journalism degree. Maybe you're in a degree for a particular health science. You could be in a degree that's a bit more general as well. You could be in an arts and humanities degree that doesn't necessarily have a direct career pathway. And I always think it's really important that of what your degree is, that is not signposting you towards exactly what you need to do. That is simply allowing you to develop your skills, those soft skills that Mickey talked about, your ability to undertake research, your ability to communicate, to work as part of a team, to communicate complex information and analyze complex information. There's a load of different skills that you will pick up throughout your degree. And rather than a degree in, say, marketing, signposting you towards a pigeonholing you to marketing, you can use those skills in a range of other disciplines. There's loads of people who might have a degree in psychology who are now working in business type roles. There's people working in a range of other roles that have very different backgrounds. And that is the beauty really of higher education. It's not necessarily just about the job that you get at the end of the day. It's actually about your development across the duration of your program and beyond that too. Keep a record of your achievements, profile everything that you do. Don't be afraid to ask for references or recommendations, and it'll be no surprise. I'm sure you've already, if you've been to some of the previous sessions, heard a lot about LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is genuinely just such a useful tool to have. And the way that I always look at it is it's a bit like a digital scrapbook. If you use it throughout your time, whether that's throughout your time in university, but also beyond in your professional career, you can profile all your achievements. You can profile everything that you undertake, whether that is within your studies, whether that is whether that is within a career. And that is so handy, even for your own reference, when you're then going for a job in a couple of years' time, you can look back in your LinkedIn profile and be like, I forgot that I did that group work assignment in my final year. That's actually really, really handy for working towards my interview where I have to talk about communication ability. So I think it's really important to use LinkedIn and not just to have the profile, but also to post on it and to keep a record of all of the things that you do across your time in university beyond. Plan ahead. One of the most disconcerting or one of the most intimidating things might be trying to work out what you want to do next. And it's no small feat to work that out. But once you have an idea, even a rough idea of what you want to do, whether that's even just that you think you would quite like to work within the healthcare sector, and make a plan for what you need to get there. What experience do you reckon that you need? What qualifications do you need? Do you perhaps need to for postgraduate options? And how does your current experience apply? And don't just necessarily think about, having a degree in psychology or whatever. Think about everything else that you've done. Going back to some of the points that Mickey made, think about any of the clubs or societies you've been involved in. Think about your part-time job. There's loads of experience that you'll have gained through part-time employment. And think about other things that you're involved in the community. All of that experience is extremely relevant and could actually really set you apart from other candidates if you're going for a particular opportunity. And that does bring me to my next point, which is that all experience counts. Any volunteering, any extracurricular activity, even any activism that you've undertaken, that all helps to create an image of your character and of your experience. So if you have a track record of having been involved in local community groups, or you've been involved in voluntary roles in a number of occasions, they're all things that are really, really meaningful. And for a future employer, or even for perhaps if you're looking at options, they're all really lucrative because they help to demonstrate who you are and what qualities and what skills and experiences that you can bring to the table. Use your connections, and you've already heard from Mickey about the importance of making connections and maintaining those connections too. Stay connected with your classmates and your lecturers. Keep connected on LinkedIn, for example, and make use of networking events and sites. So there's a range of different events that are organized via LinkedIn. I know network events organised by Employability and Careers and by the alumni department within Ulster, and do make the effort to come along to them, especially now in the COVID age when a lot of those things are online. It's even more accessible to meet people from a range of different backgrounds who are based all over the world. And use the alumni networks in UU, use the UU Connect site and the alumni mentoring platform as well, because they are really valuable ways that you can gain a bit more knowledge about something that you're perhaps exploring, but also that you can some support if you're applying for a role, maybe somebody who's working in a similar field who might be able to help you with interview preparation, or maybe somebody who's based in an area that you're thinking of perhaps moving to. They're all things that having those connections and fostering those connections will really yield value for. There's no right time, and I think this is a really important point for me. Don't base your journey off anybody else's, and especially don't base somebody else's social media, whether that's in Facebook or LinkedIn, and don't see that as being a full account of their story, because actually you're only seeing the highlights reels. You're only seeing the achievements. You're not seeing the interviews that they didn't get, or the interviews that weren't successful. You're not seeing the hours that they've put in to preparing for applying for jobs or for masters or whatever. You're only really seeing their achievements, and absolutely it's important that you profile those, but don't necessarily think that you're failing because you see somebody else succeeding. Take journey as it comes, and don't think that because your best friend has just graduated and has got a graduate job and is looking at putting a deposit down a house, that that's what you need to do. If you don't want to do that, or if you don't see that as the right pathway for you, then respect yourself and respect the journey that you're coming on, because you will find a time when you get to a stage and you're like, I'm so glad that I've taken the pathway that I have taken, because I know certainly, and I don't know if Mickey feels the same way, when I was in the midst of year contract with student unions, I was seeing a lot of friends who graduated with me in permanent contracts. It was like, have I kind of just followed my heart and not followed my head? But actually, I think it was right to follow my heart, because then I found something that I had a really deeply rooted passion for, and I've been able to use that and apply some of the previous skills I would have picked up in my degree, and combine those together. So I think it's really important to follow your gut, and to make the decision that you feel is right for you. The journey probably won't be straightforward, and the left is probably what you may have optimistically thought would be your journey through university when you started. And I think the right might be what some of you may have found that your journey has been. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because in every twist in that picture, there's a lesson and there's something that you can gain, and there's some experience that you have developed. So just because it hasn't been as linear a pathway as you would have perhaps hoped, it doesn't mean that it hasn't been worthwhile or valuable, because there's so many valuable life lessons through those twists, whether those twists are not getting the mark that you hoped for in an assignment, whether the twist is not getting that job that you were hoping for. There's always something to be learned from those experiences. Aim for something you enjoy. And there's a slogan, I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it's basically, if you find something you enjoy, you'll never work a day in your life. And I'm not sure if that's verbatim completely true. You will still have to work hard for whatever you're passionate about, but you will find that that hard work really pays yourself in an area that you're truly, genuinely, extremely passionate about. Whether that is something that you originally thought you were going to do, or something that you found along your pathway that you actually gained a passion for. So try to aim for something that you're genuinely passionate about, that makes you want to get up out of bed in the morning, it makes you want to sit up late at night working on your CV, or working on an application, or doing all that additional voluntary experience, because it'll make it worthwhile in the end. And I wanted to reflect back, and thanks to those who posted in the chat already during the previous conversation, something that I have tried to start to think about when I've been thinking about the future. If you were to write a bio for yourself in 5 years' time, what would you like it to say? So imagine that you've been invited to speak at a TED Talk, or you've been invited to speak at a conference, and you've been asked to send your bio across for the conference program. What would you like it to say? And once you know what that is, that's what you can aim for. That's what you can really scaffold your planning and you aim towards in the next couple of years. And that is myself. I'm happy to take any questions, and also please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's fairly easy to find me. Just type in Kevin McStravick, or you can find me on Twitter at Kevin McStrav. And yeah, that is myself. Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak to you, and I'm really looking forward to the remaining sessions from the other speakers, and happy to take any questions as well.
Thank you very, very much indeed. I don't think there was actually any questions in the chat there. An awful lot of positive comments, great comments. I love the image of on your slides. Loved hearing from you, Kevin. Mentioned the value of LinkedIn, and Gail, there's a couple of LinkedIn sessions next week. But please hang around. I think that's a very valid point that Kevin made there in terms of your bio. If you haven't started thinking about your short bio, you know, that's something that you maybe can start working on. And excellent points there. Really, really very valid points in terms of keeping a record of your career to date is very, very important. Kevin, thank you kindly for that. I really, really enjoyed that, and hope the students did as well. Certainly by the comments and the thumbs up. Amazing. Brilliant comments. Thanks a million, Kevin. Lovely. I'm going to then very quickly move on to our third guest speaker here, and I'm going to hand it over to Tony. Tony, it's over to you.
Thanks, Donna. I don't have any slides, sorry.
Not at all. You're very welcome.
It's maybe an age
fine.
thing.
In the Peers Cafe, not a problem.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Tony Rice. I'm just here. I'm giving back, I suppose, because I wouldn't sort of be where I'm at unless it was for Donna and the careers team. So I'm a mature student. I was a mature student. I left school in 1992. I was at a grammar school. I only came out with one GCSE. I didn't turn up for half of them, messed about, just went straight into work, started doing dead-end jobs, thinking, no, this isn't for me. So I applied for the RAF, turned me down because GCSEs, applied for higher paying jobs, turned down GCSEs. So went through a long stage of unemployment and decided maybe I want to go to uni, but I just wasn't sure. So I seen a sign for the access course in Limavady Tech when I was driving past one day, and I thought, you know what, I'll go in and just speak to them. So I went in, applied for access course, got onto it, and that was just because I had left school. I was out of education over 20 years. I thought, do I still have it? Am I still able to do it? So took the 2 years, done the access course, done well enough to get at the end of the university. So actually the night before I had to have my personal statement handed in, I still didn't know what degree I wanted to do. I just wanted to get a degree. So I was doing travel and tourism, and the night before I actually changed the history, history and media. So I applied for history and media, got accepted, started. So I had then, sorry, let me see. Yeah, so started university. The kind of approach that I took was, do you want to approach the degree with like a good enough, is it just good enough? Is that going to be good enough, or do you want to do the best that you can? So without getting all philosophical or whatever how you say it, the way I looked at it was the time's going to pass anyway. So for me, I wanted to do the best as I could with the time that I had. So it was really about taking ownership. I looked at the skills week there that Donna has put up, and there's like 100 placements available in the civil service and over 1,800 graduate opportunities. Before I started with university, when I was unemployed for a while, I applied for close to 100 jobs in a year, and I got 2 interviews, and one of them was door-to-door sales in Belfast, and the other one was cold calling in Belfast, and it was like an hour-and-a-half journey each way, and it just wasn't for me. So what happened then when I was at uni, I was looking, and there was people coming around, and they were given opportunities for gap years, work abroad, travel, work abroad for a year. Looking back now, I probably should have went to university after I left school, but that's just the way things have landed for me. Like, I was married, I've got kids, I get them at weekends and stuff. So my journey was kind of different, where I started seeing university as an opportunity to better myself personally and have a personal achievement, plus maybe get a better job out of it. So what happened then was, after first year, I was mixed. I had sort of mixed emotions about the degree, because I was doing media and I was doing history, and I started thinking, well, I'm not too sure about the media. I wasn't doing as well on it. I wasn't getting as good of marks. So I went and spoke to the lecturers. They had a year that's of media and history, just to kind of gauge where I was at. And they always says, listen, if you're not happy, just drop one. Do whatever one that you want to do. I was getting better marks in the history, so I thought, right, okay. So then I realised that getting in the modules, if you didn't like them, you've got, like, there was 5 modules, you only had to take 3. And there was ones in first year that I wanted to change, but it sort of didn't have the nerve. That's fine. Change. If you're not happy, if it's not suiting you, change. Go and speak to the lecturers. That's what they're there for. You know what I mean? They'll point you in the right direction. So when it came to final year, the way I looked at it was, I worked Thursday evening, Friday and Saturday, and I get my kids on the Sunday. So I was in uni Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to lunchtime. So I thought, right, I'm going to treat it like a job. I'm going to treat it like I was in work, but not as regimented. So I would go into uni on a Monday morning, if I had a lecture or not, 9 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock, go get a coffee, go to the library. But I didn't go to the library. I took a laptop and went into the library, because I couldn't sit in my computer room, because it was just mayhem, noise, and I just couldn't concentrate. And then I would maybe do a bit of work for a couple of hours, go for a coffee, and not overly stress myself. But even if I was there at 4 o'clock, maybe had a lecture during it, and I got a wee bit of work done. I got a couple of 100 words done of an essay. Like first year and stuff, I started trying to test myself and leaving things at the last minute. Disaster. You know what I mean? Total disaster. So I had to, by the time I got to third year, I had kind of sussed out what I needed to do, and the marks were getting good. And I thought, you know what? I can probably aim for the best I can do here. So that's why I kind of put the time in. Second year, go to grad fairs. Everybody says, no, you have to be a graduate. I thought, well, hang on a minute. Well, I want to go and see what it's all about. I want to see what kind of jobs there is. I want to see what they're offering. I want to see what kind of questions they're asking. And I actually printed out about 10 or 12 CVs, and hardly any of them wanted them. LinkedIn. What's your LinkedIn profile? We'll get you on LinkedIn. Everybody was saying the same. So even though you need a CV, I found, like, as I say, because I left school in the 90s and it was just all CV orientated, I found then times have moved on. Everybody wanted your LinkedIn profile. So I created one, but I actually didn't get that really up to date until after where I'm at now. Something that the other 2 speakers sort of touched on there was, like, I had bumped into people that I hadn't seen in a long time. What are you doing now? And I says, well, I'm working, but I'm doing a degree. Oh, what are you doing a degree in? I said, history. What are you going to do with that? You want to be a history teacher? 90% of people said that. You're going to be a history teacher? And I was like, nope. So I actually work in Citibank now. So it's class financial services. So my history degree content has absolutely nothing to do with what I do now. So after I got the job, I was speaking to the guy that interviewed me, and I says to him, why did you take me? How many people did you take for the job? And he says, I interviewed for 1 job, and I took you out of all the interviewees. I says, even though I done a history degree. Why? Because I was curious, because it was my second interview since I left uni, and I got the job, whereas before I had done over 100 interviews and was getting nowhere. So in the interview, he said to me, what's been one of your biggest obstacles to date? And I says, well, in final year of university, the lockdown happened, went into shutdown, libraries all closed, history degrees, I was in the library every day. I says, but I had 6,000 words in my dissertation route by December, because I was planning ahead, because I was wanting to get the assignments done to free up time in January and February to try and get the dissertation finished. I said, so I was kind of most of the way there. I said, so when I came to it, when the lockdown happened and everywhere shut down, I was still able to get the rest of the dissertation finished. And I ended up getting first. And, you know, before I started uni, I would never ever have thought it. But it was really putting the time in at the end. And another thing is, like employers, even though I'd done the history degree and it wasn't the content, there were so many boxes were ticked from what I had said. Like I had to think on my feet in the interview, and it was genuine answers. You know, and he was like, said to me like, the way you manage your time, the way you went to uni during the week and worked at the weekend, you know, and you seen where you wanted to be on down the line, and that all went for me, and that got me the job. And another thing that was going to see Donna and Norman, and Donna was actually the one that pointed. He says, "Listen, there's a job in City." And I was thinking, "But that's a bank." She says, "100% apply for it." And I went and seen Donna, and I remember you told me about the STAR technique, and she gave me different tips to help me in the interview. And honestly, if it wasn't for me going and seeing, I would never have even considered applying. Just wanted to touch on a wee bit of advice, sort of like how I got through. Like go and see your lecturers. They're actually friendly. They're dead on. They know their subject. Take an interest, even if it's going for a 10-minute chat. It'll put you in good light, and you know they'll remember you when it comes to marking, and show that you've got an interest, rather you're not just there because you have to be there. There was like one of the lecturers told me that they seen a girl in third year and they had to ask her who she was because she had never been to any lectures. She just done it all from her friends who were giving her notes or whatever. Keep in touch with the careers, use the resources available at uni, and they'll definitely keep you right. As I said, I wouldn't have applied for City unless it was speaking to Donna. Use what the uni offer. There's a thing called Studiosity, send off the essays, they proofread them, brilliant. I only picked up on that in third year. RefWorks, I was the only person there when we were doing the class every 2 weeks. I was telling people in third year about it. You just import the book from the library and it references it for you. People in third year were saying to me, how did you do all the referencing like that? And just use RefWorks. Nobody used it, nobody knew about it. Avoid Google unless you're just looking for a general overview. I used USearch as my search engine for doing assignments. So just used USearch and got the material from there. Like at the end of the day, the lecturers got Google too, you know, so and they know their subject inside out. So just e-journals, e-books, that's just how I got to do it. I'm actually at work now in my room, in my house. So
thanks so
yeah.
much, Tony. That is we have some beautiful inspirational quotes here, and the tips and connect with your academics and the wider university team. Brilliant work. Fantastic. And accolade. Really give yourself a real pat on the back.
And
well
again,
done.
I'm on LinkedIn as well, so just Tony Rice. If anybody wants any other questions, they can
Brilliant.
get me there. So
well, if you want to hang around because if there's any questions at the end, you're very welcome. Now, just for our final guest here today, she is Rose Between the Thorns. Without further ado, it is Sarah Bragg. And it's actually good evening to Sarah because Sarah will explain where she's at. Lovely. Over to you, Sarah.
Everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I don't have slides either, and I'm tuning in from Taiwan, so it's my evening time here. My name is Sarah Bragg. I am a psychologist, a published author, and I set up my own business in 2016 called The Power to Reinvent, and I run it entirely online and travel the world full time. A bit less so in COVID now. I've lived in Portugal, Thailand, Bali, Copenhagen, and I'm now currently in Taiwan. I've been featured in The Telegraph, Candace magazine, Mantra magazine, and that all sounds very impressive. But I am also the same Sarah that graduated in 2005 from her psychology degree with absolutely no idea what I wanted to do, because I hadn't really thought about it. You know, I was so focused on getting my degree that I didn't really think about what that good job that everybody referenced was. And so in 2005, when I graduated, my first job was in Mango, working as a sales assistant, because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Since 2005, I have had 9 different jobs. I have done jobs like I've been an operations manager where I've managed a team of job coaches. I've done some consultancy work for the European Commission where I've worked with universities all across the EU. I have been a business coach and worked with clients like IKEA and House of Fraser. And now I run my own business, and never in my wildest dreams would I have thought in 2005 or even in 2016, if I'm totally honest, that I would become a published author. And I share this because this is the beauty. This is the non-linear beauty that your graduation marks. This is where you get to decide what experiences you have in life. This is where you get to really tap into your skill set. What impact do you want to have on the world? Do you know what type of things do you want to experience in the workplace? To really discover who you are and what you want. And it's where you get to define this good job that people often talk about. And as our other speakers kind of, already said, and I love that it's a collective experience of people sharing the same things in a sense, don't obsess over the destination. Like, really pay attention to the journey, because the journey never ends. Your career is this ongoing thread of experiences. And when I look back at the times in my career when I maybe wasn't very happy or very fulfilled, it was because I was always chasing the next thing. It was like, okay, I graduated and now I've got that job and now I need to get a better job. When the most joy came whenever I just relaxed into the experience, when I really looked at what is it that I love to do, like what are my strengths, what employers do I like to work for, what environment I like to be surrounded by. And it's that really that brings you the most fulfillment. And doesn't matter what your next job is, whether you get into that graduate program or whether you don't. What matters is that you keep on tapping into the things that you enjoy, and the more you do that, the more life will unfold. So in terms of some kind of a few tips, I guess, to move forward, I think our other speakers have really given some beautiful practical advice that you can all implement. My tips are maybe slightly different. The first one would be take a moment to celebrate your success. You as a group of people who are studying during a pandemic, graduating during a pandemic, that requires a real effort that I have never experienced before. It's hard enough trying to navigate these crazy times as it is, let alone try to apply for jobs and complete your degree. So don't rush into the next step. If you don't have all the answers right now, and if you feel really, really confused, that's okay. They'll come. But to take that moment before you jump into the job and to the career, just to celebrate everything that you've done up until this point. The second bit of advice is be gentle and compassionate towards yourself. Like Tony said, you may apply for a lot of different jobs. You're going to have resilience. Kevin touched on that point, and Mickey touched on the point about, it's if you fail, it's a redirection. It's an opportunity for something else to come along. And bring that gentle kind of compassionate voice, that inner voice to yourself as you go through those experiences. Many of you have never done this before, stepped out into the real world, sat in front of employers, maybe physically, maybe remotely. So be kind towards yourself and just take those small steps at a pace that suits you. And then finally, really tap into where you feel in flow. So with my psychology hat on, flow is a state where we feel our best and perform our best. And it's where we get a really deep sense of meaning and happiness and achievement. In fact, when we're in flow, our productivity levels increase by up to 500%. So notice what elicits flow for you. These are kind of your signature strengths. You know, do you feel in flow when you're writing? Do you feel in flow when you're given a presentation? Do you feel in flow when you're problem solving? Got your head buried in an Excel spreadsheet? The more you notice that, and the more you can craft your career around your own unique flow, the more fulfilling it will be. And that's all from me.
That is lovely. Thank you very, very much indeed. Sarah, some very, very strong messages there and from Sarah. In terms of the audience, no doubt you will agree in terms of, you know, taking that moment to celebrate. You know, even if you're not a graduate, if you're a first year student, if you've completed this first year successfully, you know,
Yes.
this year, absolutely, you know, take that time to celebrate, absolutely. And I loved what Sarah mentioned there about being gentle and compassionate. Elizabeth has put into the chat here, being gentle and compassionate helps to be grateful, which opens mind and sense. And Sarah has, Liz has put in there, thank you so much, Sarah. Beautiful comments. Loved your advice. Brilliant presentation from one of our presenters, Kevin. Eva has said really useful tips to take away. And I really liked Sarah's mention there about the whole feeling the flow. I don't know, has any of you ever come across that expression? That's certainly new for me, which is definitely a great takeaway, you know, to enhance your fulfillment and, you know, to express and enjoy that moment is definitely very, very important.
Yeah, very much so.
It really is. Thank you very, very much indeed. Now, just before we round up, I know we're sort of at the 12 o'clock mark, but that's absolutely fine, no problem. Does anybody have any questions or would like to ask any of the panel? Peter saying, thank you very much indeed. Love that. Where do you feel in flows from Brooke? Craft your career around your own unique flow. And Brooke has commented that she loved that. That was very, very nice. Thank you very much indeed for sharing that, Sarah. Does anybody have any final questions for any of our panel members here today before we come to a closure, or is everybody going away feeling that little bit more inspired in terms of graduation? What's next after graduation? There isn't this mad panic. There is time to take note, reflect. That's great. Lovely. Well, feel free to add any questions, or myself and Gail will certainly pick them up. I just would like to really and sincerely a virtual clap for my three male presenters, Kevin, Mickey and Tony. And last but by no means least, thank you kindly. I really appreciate the time difference, etc. Really very, very useful. And no doubt Sarah will be is on LinkedIn as well. So if you'd like to follow Sarah, because I know that she does a lot of workshops, feel free to touch base and connect as the other presenters said. It's very, very important to have that connection and network. At the end of the day, we are an Ulster family, and it really, and it is all about sharing is caring, really, at the end of the day. That's lovely. I'm just going to actually finish up with a couple of pointers here in terms of my last slide. That's great, Tony. Thank you very, very much for your honesty. You all were such great presenters. Lovely and great takeaway messages. A couple of sessions running then. We've got the tech and sustainability is just starting now. With the growth mindset again starting our session, or later this afternoon we've got the session with David Mead. So to round off our week of skill sets, please feel free to book into any of these sessions. And don't forget that we do have the one-to-one advice, support and coaching. We also can be followed on our social media channels, and we have a wide range of digital resources to support you and your placement, or indeed your graduate support as you progress within your career. Thank you all kindly. I really, really appreciate your time, and I hope you have a lovely weekend. I'll just check here finally to see if there's any final questions. Brilliant. That's great. Thanks very much. And Gail actually added a couple of the resources in there to the chat box for the digital resources. Brilliant. And also, Sarah has put in her connection there in terms of the power. I'll just go back there. You can also connect with Sarah on Instagram at the Power to Reinvent. Brilliant. That's lovely. That's great. No problem, Brooke. I understand that totally. Thank you kindly. And Peter, thank you very much for your contribution, and Liv and Elizabeth as well there. Well, thank you kindly. I think that's very much from us, and hopefully we'll all see you soon. Thanks very much, Elizabeth. Brilliant.
Right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks a million, Tony. That's great. Thanks very much, Mickey and Kevin.
Yeah.
No problem, don't worry.
Thanks for having us, Donna.
Great.
Chat to you soon.
You're very welcome, Mickey. Take care.
Thanks for having us, Donna. Take care.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye now.
Bye. Have a good day. Thanks very much, Rona. Okay, Caitlin, thank you. That's great. Okay, Laura.
Donna, do you want to stop your recording?
Yeah, lovely.
I can't do it.
I nearly